Okay, we're going to do a quick run through Blackmagic Cam app. This is an app that Blackmagic developed. It works really well with their entire ecosystem, including DaVinci Resolve, but it is not necessary to edit in DaVinci Resolve. You can just shoot with Blackmagic and then film in whatever app that you want. This app was famously used for filming a recent Apple keynote event. Anyways, let's open the app. All right, so the cool thing about Blackmagic Camera app is that it has a lot of professional features in a free app. So let's run through these real quick, starting with the 4 on the side. The top right-hand button is the camera button that brings us to this interface. That's pretty easy. Media button shows all the media that you have. Blackmagic also has this thing called Blackmagic Cloud that works to upload clips here into the cloud so that it's easy to download to your computer. That's not necessary to use or to use this app. However, if you do, then you can also have live dialogue with people on your team through this Blackmagic Cloud chat function. And then the last button on the right column is settings, and there's just a bunch of settings that we'll run through later on. Okay, back to the camera button. Across the top, we have all of our settings, what lens we're using, what frame rate, what shutter speed we're using, the iris. So on this phone and most smartphones, the iris is LOT, and it approximates depth by changing how the image looks digitally. Anyways, then we have our runtime. Then we have our ISO, white balance, tint, what resolution we're filming at. Right now I'm in 4K. Across the bottom, we have our histogram. We have the amount of space left on the device that you're recording on. And so in my current recording codec, I could record for about 50 minutes. And then we have our audio level meters. And then if you tap on the audio meters, then you can see what's going on more specifically in more detail, and you can change the gain of your audio recording. And then the center column over here, I guess not really centered, but not all the way far right. We have screen overlays. We have focus, exposure, record, of course, stabilizing, a digital zoom, and then a slate. Okay, let's jump into each of those in detail. So we're going to look at the settings across the top first. Lens selection, if you just tap on lens, then I'm using the iPhone 13 Pro, and so it has the 3 lenses, a wide angle, the standard, and then the close-up zoom. There's a nice shot. Terrible composition. Our frames per second, FPS. Right now I'm filming in 24, but you can, flip through here and change what frame rate you're doing. I want us to be filming in 24 anyway, so that's good. Shutter speed. This is measured in fractions of a second. So right now I'm at 1/48th of a second. And then here on sort of, we can drag up and down to change our shutter speed. Obviously the slower the shutter, the brighter the image, the faster the shutter speed, the darker the image. Also getting some weird flickering with my cheap desktop lamp. And then right next to it, we have some sort of presets for common shutter speeds. ISO. Same thing, we have a little scroll wheel here. The higher ISO, the brighter the image, but also the more digital noise your image has. So you want to keep it as low as possible for the scene. And then right next to it, we have quick buttons for common ISOs. White balance, similar thing. If you see the blue auto is illuminated, that means it's locked. So just tap auto to unlock it, and you can scroll through your white balance color temperatures, or you have the presets over here. In here is a pretty gross lighting situation. I'm going to throw it back to auto just for this talk. And then tint, very similar to white balance, where you can control the image tint on the magenta to green scale. And then we have the same sort of presets. Okay, let's run through the column that's in the same spot as the record button. So here at the top is the frame overlay. So there's a lot of really professional features packed in here. First one is zebras. Zebras is a warning to you, telling you that parts of your image are overexposed. And so currently I have it at 100%. And so everything that has those sort of diagonal crawly hash lines, those are the zebras. So that part of the image is overexposed. That part of the image is at 100% brightness, so pure white. And so I could actually set this warning lower. Say I know that I plan on adding a lot of contrast to my image in post. So that's going to push my whites, even brighter. So say I want to set this warning lower, so I could set it at 90%, say. So now everything that has those crawling hash marks on it, the zebra marks, that's at 90% brightness or higher. And so that's just an exposure tool to let you know, hey, parts of your frame are approaching overexposure. Here, let me speed up my shutter speed, and you can see that as I make my image darker, the zebras, take up less space because less of the image is approaching overexposure. So I can make this so dark. Still have a little bit on the edge of the camera there. That's about right there. So with these current settings, 1/4000th of a second shutter speed, the only thing that's overexposed in my frame is the actual light bulb itself. So anyways, that's a bit of an extreme, but that's what zebras are. They are an exposure tool to let you know when parts of your image are overexposed. And you can set them at different percentages. So I'll turn it off for now, but I actually like to leave my zebras on. I leave them around 95. Sometimes I'll do 90 if I know I'm going to be doing a lot of color in post. Okay, this is a focus tool. This is called focus peaking. So focus peaking works by taking everything that's in focus and sort of outlining it with that little white line. There's two different types of focus peaking. You can have this thing called focus peaking, or if we jump into the settings and go to monitor, we could change the focus assist to colored lines. Go back to camera. And now you see, instead of sort of that like overly sharpened white dots, now we have these colored lines. And I believe you can change the color. Yeah. So, if you've got a lot of red or green, like if I use green in this image, it's going to be a little bit less helpful because it shows up, but I also have a lot of green in the image. So, let's shift through focus so you can see this working. So I've got this camera here in the foreground. Let's pull focus to the camera and you can see how the focus assist works. So I'm moving away from the background, closer to the foreground. This is just a tool to say, hey, this is what's in focus. This is what's in focus, and this is not what's in focus. And we can push this now to the back again, and you can see that the focus assist lines shift to the back there. And I can go even further, and we can move through the back of my shelves onto my back wall. And now we go even further than that. And it's kind of obvious that everything is unfocused, but yeah, so focus assist with the colored lines or with peaking. Switch this back to peaking. There you go. This is what peaking looks like. Shift to the back. There we go. That's pretty good. Moving on down. I'm going to turn that off for now, but I usually use some form of colored lines or peaking as a focus assist for myself. Next we have grid lines. So our classic rule of thirds. This is tilt and yaw correction. So I have this sort of like plus sign in the middle here. And then those other two brighter lines show me where my phone is actually pointed. So if I need it to be perfectly straight up and down, there it is. As I start to tilt, it shows me what's happening, which way I'm tilting. Here we have a center crosshair. Here we have a center dot. And you can overlay these, how you want. You can have the center dot and the rule of thirds, or you could have this tilt measurement plus the crosshairs plus the dot. So it just gets kind of noisy, kind of busy, but however you want. You could have them all on just for reference and then quickly toggle all of them by toggling the on and off button. Anyways, I like to have the rule of thirds on, but I'm going to turn it off just as I run through this. Cool. Next up is aspect ratio guides. And so if you want to film in an aspect ratio that is something other than 16:9, which is a standard widescreen, then this gives you guides for that. I don't believe that it excludes it from the recording. So I think this is just like a framing guide for your end, and then you can crop it out later in post. We get the 4:3. 4:3 is becoming a little bit more popular now. That's like the old TV aspect ratio. We can go 1:1, which was hot on Instagram for a little bit. Anyways. Safety margin. So this just puts a box around a certain percentage of the screen. This is if you want to make sure that some information is absolutely not going to get cut off by some sort of like monitor bezel overlay, or perhaps projection spill over, a projection spilling off like the edge of the projection screen, then this is what you would use for your safety margin. I think titles are supposed to be inside 85%, might be 84. Anyways. And then false color is an exposure tool. Different levels of brightness are given a different color. And here I'll shift my exposure so you can see that happening. So as the image gets brighter or darker, different parts of the image shift in this color. This is a professional tool that helps camera operators very quickly know at a glance what exposure levels different parts of their image are. All right, turn that off. And then if you like to color grade with LUTs, this is a little bit more advanced, but if this is something that you want to incorporate into your workflow, then you can actually load a LUT into this app and then have it overlay the image here and not get baked into the image. So if you know you're going to use something later on in post, you could put that same LUT here on your footage and see what it's going to look like as you're recording, but it won't get baked into the recorded image. It's just an overlay. All right, moving on down, we already talked about focus. You can do autofocus, tap to focus, tapping around. And then of course you can pull focus manually. I could pull this even closer to exaggerate that. There we go. Exposure, brightness exposure. This works in tandem by shifting the ISO and the shutter speed. But it looks like it's going to try to favor a shutter speed at 1/50th because that's what I set it at. But at a certain point, it hits the bottom ISO. So then it starts using the shutter speed to shift exposure. And then you can also auto expose by tapping around the image. All right, image stabilization is pretty awesome in this app. Let's see, I'm gonna take this off the tripod. Right now I'm just kind of holding it. My hands aren't too shaky, but they're a little jittery. So I can use standard stabilization. Sort of smooths out the jitters a little bit. Cinematic stabilization makes the image quite smooth. Do some camera movements here. And then extreme smooths it out even more. I don't know if this means that you don't need a tripod for pans and tilts, but it's a pretty cool feature that this free app has. Turn it off for now. All right, this digital zoom, you can push into the image to really double check your focus and make sure that what you're focusing on is actually in focus. So here let's say we're going to focus on the text canon here on my camera. So switch into manual focus, pull around till we really nail it. And then I can return to my normal framing, and I know for sure that what I've wanted to be in focus is in focus. And then last here we have Slate. And Slate's kind of fun. You know, you could enter in like the names of the next clip, what reel you're shooting on, what scene you're in, what take this is, you know, interior, exterior, day, night. You can swipe to the second screen and you can enter. I just threw this text in haphazardly. But I like this idea about having this metadata available for all these clips, but it's not implemented super well, even inside of the Blackmagic ecosystem. Like some of the metadata shows up within the apps, but not all of it. And then outside of the ecosystem, like just on your computer, very little of this data actually comes through. So this is a feature I expect to get utilized better and better through software updates. Okay, let's hop into the settings. All right, first section for record, we have which codec you're going to use. And this is sort of device dependent. My device can record in Apple ProRes, which is a professional format, but also it is a data hungry format. So if we hop back to camera, we can see that I've got 5% of storage left. That's 14 gigabytes. And at the current codec, I can record for 41 minutes. So let's switch to Apple ProRes. Go back to camera. So with the Apple ProRes codec, I could record for 3 minutes and 50 seconds. So we went from 41 minutes to 3 minutes. So it's cool that I can record in these codecs, but I will need a lot of space. So I'm going to leave it on the H.264 for this class. Camera, you can set a bunch of different things here, which are all fantastic. You could dig through there. But the one that I like a lot is the shutter measurement. It switches the shutter measurement from shutter speed to shutter angle. And shutter angle is a more professional way of measuring shutter on your camera. And so here you can see that shutter now is getting measured in angles, or degrees, I mean, 180 degrees. And the smaller the angle, the darker the image gets. This way of measuring shutter goes back to earlier movie making technology, where the shutter itself was a disc that spins in front of the frames of motion picture film that are moving through the camera. And on that disc, there's a little gap kind of shaped like a pizza slice. And so the wider of a slice that you made, that was a larger angle. And so that little gap, that little pizza slice in the spinning disc, that was the shutter. And so you could control how big that gap was, or how big of a piece of pizza that you had. And so you could imagine that a 90-degree shutter, that's like a quarter of the pizza opening. Or a 180-degree shutter is like half of the pizza opening. And so you can see as we make that larger, the image gets brighter. As we make that smaller, that little piece of pizza getting more and more narrow, the image gets darker. So anyways, this is a more professional way to relate to shutter. Some people like using it. Some people kind of like sticking to shutter speed, which is a way of measuring shutter that's come from still photography instead of motion picture photography. Audio, a lot of controls here. You can see what audio source you are using. Right now I have the Rode VideoMic Go 2 plugged into my phone for this. If you use the built-in iPhone microphones, you can control which microphones it's using. So the front microphone is a microphone that's facing the same way as the front-facing camera, so like the selfie camera. The back microphone are the microphones that are facing the same way as the back cameras, the main cameras. And then the bottom microphone is if you were talking on the phone and holding it up to your ear, like you're just talking on the phone, then the bottom microphones are the mics that are closest to your mouth at that point. So depending on, where your subject is and how you're utilizing your camera, you might want to switch which microphone is getting used. We can change the format of our audio. So we can switch to PCM as a professional format. It's pretty amazing how many options that you have for recording audio here. I'm going to leave it on stereo, but if you had like some sort of audio interface plugged into your phone, you could record 4 discrete channels. And then when you get to the editor, you can control their volume independent of each other. All right, sample rate. It's pretty crazy that we can crank this all the way up that high, but we really don't need to. 48 kilohertz is just fine. And then audio metering is just sort of sets the scale for how it presents loudness to you. Monitor, we were looking at this earlier. You can change your focus assist from peaking to colored lines. The focus assist color, if you do colored lines, then you can, switch whatever color works best for your scene. The grid line opacity you can set here. The grid guide color you could set here. So if you want your rule of thirds grid to be in a different color. And now if you want to plug in an HDMI display to your phone, you can just turn all this stuff, display battery, indicator, storage status, histogram, you could turn that on and off. If you want to turn off your audio meters, you could do it there. Just makes your camera window a little bit cleaner. I like having all that stuff on there. Media, if you are going to be engaging with the Blackmagic Cloud and uploading clips to that, then here's some controls for that. LUTs, if you move any LUTs to your phone and load them into this program, then this is where you would do that. You can build presets for yourself, if you have a Blackmagic Cloud account. Anyways, all that. So there's tons of stuff in here. We'll probably be living mostly in the record to make sure that we're in 4K and H.264. All right, of course, last but not least, the record button. There it is, recording. That's fantastic. Tap it again to stop. Great. And then if we go to media, then we can see all of our clips here. You could tap this button here to get rid of the Blackmagic Cloud little window. There it is. We can scrub through it if we want. This is not very exciting because the camera was on a tripod, but we can get some info for it. And you can see there's a little bit of metadata here as far as like scene take and stuff. And then I can share it from here directly to, however I want to share. For me, most efficient as an iPhone user, I'm going to airdrop it to myself. There's my MacBook there. And then of course you can actually select multiples by tapping this button here. And then you can select which clips you want to send out. And I'll just airdrop them to myself. This is also the screen where then you can delete clips once you've saved them on your computer. Okay, that's been a quick walkthrough the Blackmagic Camera app.